Eitan, man. It's to me, when I have someone on the show that's from the Bay Area, it brings me back. I mean, I'm part of the exodus. I left a couple of months ago, and when I'm speaking with you, Eitan, the only thing I wish I was seeing is the hoodie. I mean, we don't see many in Miami. It's maybe too hot. When you come in here, I hate to give you the hardest question first. Why the heck did you're at a great company, you're doing great things. Don't misread that.
Yes.
I'm part of the exodus. Like, what's going on? Did you think about an exodus? Was it Hawaii? Was it Montana? Like, what's going on? Why are you still there?
Hawaii sounds wonderful. So I've had friends that have left or had extended leaves the past year.
Yeah.
Well, we have kids, so that kind of keeps you in one place.
Yes, it does.
And their school's great. But yeah, we've had friends that left to Florida, and they love it. The whole
Yeah.
remote work way of living is here. I think kind of this hybrid model is becoming, as things kind of coalesce, right? As all these ideas coalesce, I think the hybrid model is probably going to stay for a while, or perhaps for a very long time.
It's interesting the Bay Area, and now I'm in Miami. So we're talking about two startup guys, right? I'm in one coast, you're in the other coast. What I miss in Miami is when I'm at a restaurant, which I'm just starting to go to. So I'm vaccinated. It's just starting to go out in the last 3.5 weeks. I've not found that startup pocket where you can walk into the coffee shop and just pick out the startups, right? You just know, like there's like, I'm in this coffee shop, there's like 100 companies being birthed here. Like, so you don't have that. So that's been interesting. And then when you go to a restaurant or a coffee shop and you sit down next to someone, you just eavesdrop or you happen to hear the conversation. It's not about TechCrunch. It's not about Y Combinator. It's not about your buddy just got like some equity. The conversations are, so I that's when I kind of, as this opens up a little bit and you hear conversations, the conversations are not like we're used to.
Yeah, stuff's starting to open up here, but yeah, I miss a lot of the social aspects. Like, I mean, we're talking about some of these hacker nights, some of these like these like talks that you would go to. It was very impromptu. Like I would go, give a Python talk, and then you just hang out for a few more hours, talk, what are people working on, what are they interested in, or like just overall just hobbies and things like that. I miss a lot of that, over the past year and a half. So stuff's starting to open up, which is exciting.
Right.
The eavesdropping, with the social distancing, you can't eavesdrop super well, but hopefully, like if numbers continue to keep going down, maybe that can be relaxed as well. And then, we can have some of those interesting, interesting conversations.
I mean, is it fair to say you and I can go to a walk around San Francisco and we can just visually see who's the VC getting pitched? Is that a fair statement? Like you can just walk in and be like, there's a pitch going on right there. There's a pitch going on right now. Like it's a fair statement.
Maybe not. So it's still kind of dead. It still feels like people are at home, people are still like, I'm at home, right? People are still at home, but that's definitely been the case for, it's been like I have like there's like the alphabet soup of like, logos and characters and hoodies and all that stuff. And you can tell, oh yeah, these are like early stage. And then, if you're interested, you'll hear about the ones that have gotten funding, the ones that are growing rapidly. It's a very exciting place to be.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting about now to Florida, you read about it in the press. Oh, everybody's coming. That's a true statement. They're here. There are certain places that they are, but it's just like everything else. Like it's getting there. Right. But it's not just like like Florida. It's like there's Miami, there's South Beach. There's like all these little like hubs. So it's an interesting place, but then you read it. I keep on getting from my friends call me, oh, how many startups you're seeing? I'm like, the news makes you feel like they're just like every day, just planes coming here with startup dudes. Like you don't see it yet. Like, and then the other thing that I always like to talk again, because you again in San Francisco can appreciate this. What I love about the VCs that have the high net worth, successful VCs that have come from San Francisco to Miami. And I know this will make you cringe, but San Francisco, it's at low key, it's Tesla, sneakers, and a cool bicycle or something like that.
Patagonia.
That doesn't work in Miami. They come to Miami, beachfront homes, 15 to 20 million, Rolexes, Porsches. It's like, it matters. Like it's so interesting. They've always had the money, right? But I'm sure maybe their partners would roll their eyes if they pulled in with like a yellow Porsche.
There's a bit of a uniform here.
You
know,
think?
it's not suit and tie. Oh, in the Bay Area, yes,
Right.
yes, you can see, yeah. You know,
And they're not bringing that. I'm saying they're not bringing that uniform to Miami. Let me tell you, they ain't bringing that. I'm telling you, the Miami uniform is Versace and Rolex. That's the uniform they're wearing. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
It's a little hot for that, maybe. Right. It's a little hot for leather, probably.
I freaking
That's
love
funny.
It. And it's easy to see why a lot of people reach out to you for advice and for mentorship, and so. I think that's the other meaningful part that's in the Valley is the kindness, the karma. And there's so much that you've done to get here. I'd love for you to talk really about maybe something you're working on, something, advice, just
sure.
I'd love to have you riff on something you're passionate about. So thank you for letting me riff on some random stuff, but let's go into some stuff that you want to talk about.
Definitely. So it's definitely true. People are very open here, where you come from or your background. So I was educated a little bit in New England, so in Boston. Okay. And it's a different culture. What I love about this area, and I've noticed this in other hubs, like Florida, there's tech hubs now, in Arizona and Texas, obviously, in Colorado, and other parts of California, all over the country now, and honestly, all over the world. What's great is this openness of, your background doesn't quite, it doesn't really matter what you've, all the crazy stuff you've done or where you've been educated, all that stuff. That's what's really it's a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, that you can just talk, you can talk shop, you say, what are you interested in? What gets you excited? What do you want to do? Right. It's like all these things are kind of available. There's a lot of resources. So I'm of a machine learning background, right? And so I love to talk to people that are, sysadmins, or people that are in security, people that are doing, completely other things in a sense, just to see like what else is going on with essentially with the software world, right? Which is what we're really talking about, right? There's so many people. They're all open to, chatting and learning from each other, in a lot of ways helping each other.
Yes.
A lot of opportunities for like meetups, so many meetups all over the place now. If you're interested in Python, if you're just starting out, or if you've already built models in production and at scale, right? You're kind of interested about the next step, right? The next step of your career. There's so many resources out there, and that's been really, really wonderful about this area.
And what's also fascinating to me about what you said about the resources there is that you can also find the resource that's relevant to your age and stage. So if you're at that seed stage, boy, I've got 3 people that you should meet that maybe did it or failed, right? Oh, you're at A, you got to meet my buddy, he or she. Those I think are also, and that's really like, I feel like some of the bigger part of it. And then it's just like, oh, you want to work at Google. Now you don't want to do startup. You've been burnt. Let me get you into, this company, they've got money. They're not. So, I mean, that's kind of like.
There's a dichotomy.
Yeah.
There's a dichotomy. Yes, absolutely. That's such a good point. We have war stories, interestingly. And one thing also I like about not just this area, but tech in general, is the notion that you can try different things out.
Yes.
You don't have to stay at one company for 40 years, 30 years, build a career, get a gold watch at the end of it, right? What's wonderful about that is that you hear like war stories. You can try, if you want to try out a seed stage, early seed, whatever, 2 people in the garage, right? You can try that. If you want to go to a giant, $1 trillion market cap company, they're here too. Right. And the people that work there have wars, have those stories as well. And it runs the gamut, right? That's what's really nice about tech in general, is the scalability.
Yes.
The scalability of being able to go from like a 2-person thing to a 10,000 person thing and still be okay, right? You're still you'll do fine. That's really wonderful.
And adding another layer to what you said, I remember when I was starting my first company out in the Valley, in San Francisco, I just remember we were working with Wilson Sonsini, and I just remember us walking around Soma and them saying, oh, that little building is where like Instagram was started. And that little building is where there's other, and these are not long ago stories, right? And it's just, you have this belief that, yeah, two people can change the world in 18 months. Two people can change the world. It doesn't take 18 months, but it's just like, to your point, there's so many people and stories that you could point to that have done it in such a quick pace.
That part's cool. Yeah. Like the, the technologies we use, like I can tell you where the Mozilla building is or where the Docker office is. It's crazy. And then like you can say, oh yeah, like, the people the crypto bros, they're over there, they're down that street, which is very relevant now where crypto has gone last year.
Right. It is
like these things crazy. That like, yeah, like years ago you wouldn't have, that's maybe somewhat of the beauty, somewhat of the bubble is you wouldn't have thought like years ago, I wouldn't have thought, oh, crypto would be where it is today. And now they're really trying to change how, how transactions are being done, how financials are being done. It's pretty out there.
Sorry, I asked someone on my show, why do you think crypto was not accepted early on by the Valley? And someone said, it's because the Valley didn't create crypto. It's kind of like, oh yeah. Right. So there's a lot there, but that's, going back from someone I can relate to in San Francisco, the North Bay, and some of the things that have gone on, good or bad, why I moved and what I miss. Right. There's things I don't miss about the Valley, the smell of urine. I mean, in San Francisco, the smell of urine. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've walked to the Twitter building when Twitter had that building, and you would just right off the BART, what was that, Civic? Awful.
Yeah.
Like I've not been back, but the smell of urine is all over. It's awful.
The masks help. Actually, maybe one of the nice things about the pandemic is when I've been in the city the last year and I've gone a couple times wearing the mask, it's fine. It's all right. But yeah, I mean, listen, no area is perfect. No city, correct, town, location, country. I don't think there's a perfect place. You probably, you go to where it's good enough, let's say.
Yes.
Maybe the fire, like you mentioned, the fires might have been a catalyst for some people. Yeah. and that was pretty bad when that was happening last year. Speaking of masks, I mean, we had like heavier duty masks that we had to wear outside, and then our windows aren't that great. So like the smoke would seep in. So we had purifiers. Right? It's not pleasant at all. You don't want to live in an area like that.
It was. And that's
also, don't move
here. Right. I mean,
or no, move here if you want to.
Move back.
But know what you're doing. To the like know what you're getting.
Well, and what's also a sad story is when I took an Uber to the airport, and the Uber said to me, "Are you coming? When are you coming back?" Like, so now I bought a one-way ticket, and he just looked at me. He's like, "Man, you're the third person this week, like one-way trips." Yeah. So, I think, to tip our hat to ML models, which is something we want to talk through. I mean, a lot of things that we can do an ML model on. I mean, is there anything you want to talk about with ML models and explainability, or ML models and the Exodus, or ML models and payments? I mean, I'm going to tee you up here, but like, could we have predicted how, like, it's just...
Can you predict COVID? No. Machine learning overall is just, it's pattern fitting on data, and data you've probably taken in the past, right? I don't think many people can take data from the future. So no, I don't think there was an ML model that predicted COVID or
we could, I'm saying you could talk about anything on the ML explainability, but yeah, I just...
For sure.
Yeah, I don't want to set you up to that, but yeah.
I mean, explainability is super, I mean, something I'm been interested in recently. Machine learning, I think it's slowly but surely becoming mature. And by mature, meaning that it's been servicing people for, I could say, probably for decades now, in one way or another. The thing about machine learning, let's start with machine learning, is a lot of the models are not intuitive. Or you couldn't tell why, you couldn't easily tell why the prediction is what it was. I wanted to this this is a bit of a hard left, but one of the examples I like to give is like a diagnosis, like a doctor's diagnosis. Let's say you had an ML model that can predict something about a patient.
Okay.
And that prediction could be, like they, let's say life expectancy, maybe they're at risk, of something happening. Yeah. That's a prediction that's important, but I think also equally as important is why. Is it something about the blood pressure, something about a vital stat, something about a chart, right? That's explainability. It's trying to explain the prediction. We haven't seen it a lot recently, but it's starting to come to the forefront for, fairness, right? Trying to understand why a prediction is what it was. I think one of the famous examples in the news last year was the Apple Pay. I love Apple, but the Apple Pay card Goldman Sachs issued gave 2 different credit limits to 2 spouses, right, in the same household. Gave a lower credit limit to the wife versus the husband. There's regulations involved, right? There's laws. This is laws in the books that are involved here. What explainability can help in these kinds of instances is to help try to understand why the model gave a prediction. Why is perhaps, a loan rejected? Why is it accepted? Yeah. These are critically important, right? There's a number of use cases where it is important and still underutilized. So I feel like it's going to come probably in the next 5 or even 10 years. If it takes that long, it's going to come to the forefront of a need, right? Of a need for these models that have been servicing people for decades now. People are going to want to know why or how they're predicting on my data, or how they're predicting on making decisions for me, right? That in the past a person would have made.
I'm going to make a right turn. You went on a left turn. I'm going to make on a right turn to why I agree with you and how COVID helped explainability.
Okay.
Where am I going?
Okay. This is getting a little treacherous. So, how COVID is helping should not be the byline.
I think because of COVID, Fauci, CNN, and the news, I believe people now read a headline, they call kind of bullshit, and then they read right to the stats to understand, and then they get there themselves. It's a stretch to say explainability, but I feel like we've educated now to kind of call bullshit. And that's not about Fauci, CNN, or anything. Don't misread. But I think we all now are reading differently. We are reading headline, and then we're going to look at the data, and we'll either then read the article or not. But either way, we are learning our own way on explain. An R naught? Right. Do you think we would understand what an R naught is and the impact? Explain but I'm just saying, think about the vocabulary or the knowledge that all people outside of the data now, if they choose to, I don't know. It's a right turn, but there's an education there.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, this brings us back to the beginning of outreach and education and teaching and mentorship. I would love for statistics to be a big part of our educational system.
Yeah.
There's, we're talking about R naught, you're talking about P values, could I say people understand that? I mean, even sometimes I have to brush up on some of these ideas too, right? It's not statistics is challenging. You have anecdotal evidence, and then you have, aggregate evidence that could be biased, right? And so you have studies that may be biased. This is science, right? Science is hard. There is an air of skepticism out there, but ultimately science is hard, and it is evolving, right? Science evolves as you get more data, you update your evidence, you update your priors, your p-values change, you get more evidence, you have, this is, it's a step forward process. Yep. I think as scientists, if you have a science background, you're very familiar with this. You read a paper, right? And you may call BS on the paper, right? I've done that, not as this wasn't a COVID paper, this is in physics now,
right?
But I've seen a paper, or it's when I was in grad school, we've seen papers that were BS, and then you would publish a paper and with updated data, right? You have to provide evidence, you have to bring evidence. And then, but that's generally, because we're in the science world now, other labs may not trust us as well, right? So then they would run similar experiments, and then they would come to an outcome. It's ever evolving, right? There's trust, there's verification, right? And it's ever evolving. Yeah. That's why you may see things that, COVID is challenging. COVID is challenging. It just came out of nowhere. it affected everyone's lives worldwide, right? So it's not as simple as, oh, I have a little lab experiment that I'm interested in the physics thing that, most people don't really care about. It's a little different. So.
But I think we agree. It has changed the way we definitely work, but I also think it's changed the way we also kind of want to be a little bit more fact driven. But I'm also hearing, which is true, for every fact I give you, I can find a fact that counter argues the fact I just found. Like
that's where statistics is right. The study of aggregate data, right? It's so critical. And the thing with statistics, I mean, there's a saying, right? Like I'm going to butcher it, but something like statistics it's so easy to lie with statistics, right? That's true if your data is biased, right? If you aren't careful, if you can have systematic bias, you can have just standard error in your data set. You may be, studying like a cohort, and then you're trying to generalize this to the population. It doesn't generalize very well. Right? So statistics is very challenging. I wish on the educational front that more was given to that side of education. Math is very important, but like if I was gonna guess, if I would give a 12th grader, a choice between statistics and calculus, I would hope statistics would be the one. I mean, that's the one that kind of makes sense. Helps you like kind of understand some of the challenges, right? Like you have a fact which I might consider anecdotal data, and then I have anecdotal data. In a statistical model, they may be both valid, right?
Yes.
Right, because there's errors involved, right? But that's kind of the bridge that brings our anecdotal data that may contradict each other, right? May be the bridge on a model, right? To try to what's actually happening. Ultimately, though, all models are wrong. Some are useful.
I know it's so
I say that a lot with machine learning too, right? When we build models, right? Just always remember every model is wrong, but it can still be useful. And that's tends to humble, the team and me and just people that are doing these things.
It's so good. Well, Eitan, it's easy to see why you are successful at what you do, and it's also easy to see why you are a great mentor. And I appreciate both sides. I mean, growing and teaching to student teacher is kind of how I see myself, and it seems like I'm talking to someone who likes it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God. We're going to have you back. And this is the Data Standard. We're sponsored by Pandio, and check out their new launch with Pandio ML.